As you can see, Project Aurora is finally ready for its final presentation. I stood before the executive team, having just wrapped up my presentation, 2 years of tireless work, countless sleepless nights, and now finally my dream was within reach. It felt surreal, like everything I had poured into this project was about to come to life. My name is Michaela. I'm 32 years old, and I am the lead architect behind the most significant project in the history of global tech. Impressive. Michaela Eleanor Smith, the CEO, said, flashing a smile. It was a smile, but not one that quite reached her eyes. I had learned by now that smiles like hers usually meant trouble was lurking just beneath the surface, but she continued, I think we need to make a few changes before the investor presentation. The chill in her voice made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Changes, I asked, keeping my voice calm, professional, as though my heart wasn't suddenly pounding in my chest. The project has already passed all testing and validation. Oh, I'm not talking about the project itself. Eleanor waved her hand dismissively, like she was brushing off an annoying fly. I looked around the room. The other executives refused to meet my eyes, a mix of guilt and avoidance written on their faces. The only one who seemed as blindsided as I was Daniel, the CTO. He looked between Eleanor and me, confused and uneasy. I don't understand, I said, struggling to keep my voice even. I've led this project from the very beginning. Exactly. Eleanor leaned in slightly, her voice cool and calculating. You did a decent job during the development phase, but for the investor presentation we need someone with more executive presence. Her words landed like a punch to the gut. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could say anything, the conference room door swung open, and in walked Ellie Smith, Eleanor's daughter. She had been hired just 6 months ago as a special consultant. Ellie has an MBA from Harvard. Eleanor announced, her tone filled with pride. She has the perfect profile to present Project Aurora to our investors, but she doesn't know the technical details. I protested, trying to keep my voice steady. This isn't just a marketing pitch, it's an advanced artificial intelligence initiative. That's why you'll still be on the team. Ellie chimed in smoothly, her voice dripping with condescension. As technical support, I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. 2 years of my life reduced to technical support. This is absurd, I muttered under my breath. Daniel stood up, his voice firm. Michaela is the brain behind this entire project. The investors need to understand the technology, not just see a polished slideshow. Watch your tone, Daniel. Eleanor warned, her voice turning icy. Executive decisions are not up for debate. I glanced around the room. Some faces showed sympathy, others discomfort, but none dared to challenge Eleanor. They were all too afraid. You should be grateful, Ellie added, her tone sweet but patronizing. Most companies don't even keep the technical staff around after the development phase, and that's when something inside me snapped. I made a decision right then and there. I opened my laptop quickly, sending off an email I drafted months ago, just in case I had known deep down this moment might come. You're right, I said, standing up. I should be great. Eleanor's smile widened, a victorious gleam in her eyes. I'm glad you understand. Grateful, I continued, my voice clear and calm, to Mr. Dawson for teaching me that patience is the best strategy. Eleanor's smile faltered, and I saw a flicker of panic cross her face. What does the founder of this company have to do with anything? She demanded, her voice tight. Funny you should ask, I replied, gathering my things. You should be getting an email from HR any second now. As if on cue, Eleanor's phone buzzed. She picked it up, and I watched as her expression shifted from disbelief to shock, then to a furious red. This is impossible, she whispered. What is it, Mom? Ellie leaned over to see the email for herself. Mr. Lucas Dawson wasn't just the founder of global tech, I explained as I walked toward the door, feeling the weight of the moment. He was also my mentor for the past 5 years, and before he already hired last month, he sold me his majority stake in the company. You're lying, Eleanor snapped, standing up in a rage. He would never. I pulled out my phone and played a video. The recorded image of Mr. Dawson appeared on screen, his calm voice filling the room. Eleanor, his voice echoed, if you're watching this, It means you've finally shown your true colors. I always knew you'd try to steal Project Aurora, that's why I made sure. Ellie's tablet slipped from her hands, hitting the table with a loud clatter. The other executives sat frozen there, eyes wide, unable to process what was happening. The investor meeting is still happening, I said, turning toward the door. But first I think we need to discuss some leadership changes in this company. Chaos erupted behind me, but I didn't look back as I stepped through the glass doors. I could hear Eleanor yelling at Ellie, her voice wild, while Ellie sat in the corner, her face streaked with tears. Impressive, Daniel said, catching up to me in the hallway. How long have you been planning this? Mr. Dawson started preparing a year ago, I said, feeling the weight of his foresight. He realized Eleanor was hiring special consultants just to get access to Project Aurora, all those mysterious trips to Silicon Valley. Daniel muttered, a look of realization dawning on his face. We all assumed she was courting investors, I said, shaking my head, but she wasn't looking for investors. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What was she looking for? Buyers, I clarified, for a project we hadn't even finished developing. As soon as I stepped into my office, Anna, my assistant, was waiting for me, holding a folder. The reports are already coming in, she said, handing me the documents. Eleanor has been selling confidential information about the Aurora project to 3 different companies. Everything is documented. Mr. Dawson hired private investigators. They have emails. Hit like on this video. Bank transfers, everything. The weight of it all settled on me as I sat down. This was only the beginning. Before I could even respond, the door slammed open and Eleanor stormed into the room. Her usual perfectly styled hair was now a wild mess, strands falling around her face, betraying the fury that radiated from her every step. You can't do this, she shouted, her voice trembling with rage. I've run this company for 15 years. I took a deep breath, my voice steady as I met her fiery gaze. And for those 15 years you've been stealing intellectual property and selling it to the highest bidder. Her face flushed a deep red and she spat out, these accusations are ridiculous. I calmly walked over to my laptop, clicked a few keys, and projected several emails onto the wall behind me. Ridiculous, then explain this email to V, where you promised to hand over the Aurora Project's algorithms, or this one, a $500,000 transfer from LTE. The color drained from Eleanor's face, and she crumpled into a chair, visibly shaken. You don't understand, she whispered, her voice low, almost pleading. The company needed the money. The company was fine, I corrected her sharply. Unwavering, you needed the money to fund your lifestyle, Ellie's extravagant trips, her apartment in New York. Don't bring my daughter into this. Eleanor snapped, her eyes flashing with anger. Oh, I'm sorry, I said, the words dripping with sarcasm. You mean the way you dragged her into my project before Eleanor could respond, the door opened again. Ellie stepped in, her eyes swollen from crying, and she looked completely defeated. Mom, she murmured, her voice cracking, are is reviewing my resume. They're saying my Harvard degree is fake. I finished her sentence for her, just like your work experience and your references. Ellie's face went white, and she looked like she was about to collapse. I only did what Mom told me, she stammered, almost as if pleading for forgiveness. Of course you did, I sighed, my voice softening but with a touch of disappointment. Did you know your mother has been running the same con for years, hiring relatives and friends, creating fake positions, funneling company funds, all to keep up appearances? Shut up, Eleanor suddenly shouted, bolting to her feet, her eyes wild. I won't let some programmer destroy everything I've built. I couldn't help but laugh softly. The sound bitter. You haven't built anything, Eleanor. You've been feeding off the work of others for years. The real question is, what do you think the investors will say when they find out? The investors trust me, she said, her voice now lacking its earlier confidence, almost as if she were trying to convince herself the same way Mr. Dawson trusted you. I raised an eyebrow and pulled out another document, letting the silence hang in the air. Do you know why he chose me to inherit his shares instead of you? Eleanor didn't answer. She just stared at the document, her face twisting as the weight of the truth sank in. Because he knew you'd eventually try to sell the Company in pieces. I continued the secret. Meetings, the emails to competitors. He documented everything, all of it. Eleanor's face flickered with panic, her desperation evident. Now we can come to an agreement, she said quickly, trying to regain control of the situation. You keep the project, I'll handle the administrative side. I'm good at that. Just let me fix it. I shook my head, cutting her off. Number, this is over. Eleanor, the board has already been called for an emergency meeting in an hour, and they have a lot to review. Ellie's face crumpled and she started to cry again. What's going to happen to me? She asked, her voice small and full of fear. That depends, I said, pausing as I watched her carefully, my tone firm. Are you willing to testify against her mother? Eleanor's eyes widened in shock, and she turned to Ellie, her voice venomous. Don't you dare. But something in Ellie shifted for the first time. I saw the weight of the choices she had made settling on her shoulders. She seemed to realize, perhaps for the first time, who her mother truly was. I'm sorry, Mom, Ellie whispered, her voice shaky but clear, but I'm not going to prison for you. The board meeting that followed was quicker than I'd expected. With the overwhelming evidence, including Ellie's testimony, the decision was unanimous. Eleanor was removed from her position as CEO, and legal action was set into motion as 2 security guards escorted Eleanor out of the building. She muttered to herself, her voice quiet and filled with disbelief. I can't believe it's all ending like this. 20 years in this company. I watched her, a faint sad smile tugging at the corners of my lips. They could have been 20 years of real leadership, I said, my voice steady and calm, instead of 20 years of deception. After Eleanor was gone, Ellie lingered behind without her usual arrogance. She looked smaller, more vulnerable. The woman who had once strutted around with an air of superiority now seemed like a girl, lost and unsure of herself. I really am sorry, she said softly, her voice almost apologetic. Not just about the project, about everything. I sat at my new desk, Mr. Dawson's former desk, and watched her carefully, my eyes studying her for a moment before I spoke. Why did you do it, Ellie? I asked, genuinely curious. You're young, you could have built your own career legitimately. She wiped away a tear, sniffing as she tried to gather her thoughts. Mom always said the business world was ruthless, that we had to take what we wanted because no one would ever give it to us. After a while I started believing her. She let out a shaky breath. And now I see she was just projecting her own fears, her own flaws. She paused, then added, her voice softer, this time almost with regret. Mr. Dawson tried to warn me once. He told me that true success comes from creating value, not from stealing it. I opened the desk drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope I'd prepared earlier that day. Speaking of creating value, I said, handing it to her. Ellie took the envelope with trembling hands, her eyes scanning the contents as they widened in surprise. A job offer, she whispered, almost in disbelief. But why? It's an entry-level position in our marketing department, I explained. No special treatment, no shortcuts. You'll have to earn your place, just like everyone else. She shook her head, still trying to process everything I did. Mr. Dawson taught me about second chances, I said, meeting her gaze. But it's up to you to make the most of it. Suddenly Daniel burst into my office, his face flushed with urgency, like a storm was approaching. The investors are here. They moved the eating up. I straightened my suit, forcing myself to stay calm despite the adrenaline pumping through me. Then I turned to Ellie, who was still reeling from the moment. Want to see how a real tech project is presented? Ellie nodded slowly, her eyes wide with a mix of nervousness and excitement. I could tell she was beginning to understand that this wasn't just about technology. It was about presenting it in a way that would shape the future of the company. The presentation went off without a hitch. It was more than just showing what project. Subscribe for more revenge stories. Aurora could do. It was about inviting the investors to see the vision behind the tech. We didn't just present an algorithm, we showed them the future. And it wasn't just about the money, it was about building something that could change industries and the world. The investors not only saw the immense potential of our technology, but they were also impressed by the new direction the company was heading in, a direction based on transparency, ethics, and accountability. The culture we were Creating was just as important as the projects we were producing that evening. As I was locking up my office and gathering my things, my phone buzzed. It was Mr. Dawson flashing on the screen. I couldn't help but smile even though the weight of the day still lingered. I saw the news, he said, his voice full of satisfaction. Eleanor finally got what she deserved. A wave of relief washed over me, but I quickly turned it into gratitude. Thank you for trusting me, I said, but I have to ask, why didn't you stop her earlier? There was a brief pause before he responded. Because some lessons have to be learned the hard way, he said. Simply, Eleanor needed to face the consequences of her actions, and you, well, you needed to prove your strength. I needed to see you stand up for what's right. His words hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just about the project, it was everything that led up to this point: the betrayal, the power struggle, the trust I'd been given, the lessons I'd learned, and the strength I had to find to push through. And Ellie, I asked, concern creeping into my voice. The job offer, he chuckled softly. Exactly what I would have done. You're showing her how to build something the right way. You're giving her the chance to earn her place, not through shortcuts but through hard work. It was a quiet reminder that while this journey had been tough, it had also been a turning point for everyone involved. A year has passed since that pivotal moment, and Project Aurora has exceeded every expectation. It's become a global success, transforming the landscape of artificial intelligence and finding applications in industries I never dreamed of when I first started. The technology that once seemed impossible is now leading innovation, and the company is thriving like never before. Ellie has grown too. She started from the ground up, just as I promised, with no special treatment or shortcuts. Though she struggled at first, she quickly found her rhythm. She's proven herself time and again. Her dedication, intelligence, and growth as a person have shown that the job offer I gave her wasn't just a chance, it was an opportunity to build something meaningful. I've watched her transform into a hardworking, ethical professional, and it's been one of the most rewarding parts of this journey. As for Eleanor, her fate is sealed. She's now serving her sentence under house arrest. The disgrace of her actions has turned her into a pariah in the business world, and despite her attempts to regain control of the company through old connections, she's been completely shut out. Her legacy is one of deceit, and no amount of manipulation can change that. The company is no longer a place where underhanded tactics can thrive. It's a place where true leadership is valued and where transparency is the foundation of everything we do. Every morning when I walk into the office, I make a point to glance at the portrait of Mr. Dawson hanging in the lobby. It's a reminder not only of the man who made all of this possible, but also of the lessons he taught me. I can still hear his words clearly even after all this time. Success isn't about taking shortcuts, it's about building paths others can follow. Last week, while reviewing new project proposals, I came across a submission from a young engineer. His idea was brilliant, truly innovative, and I felt an immediate spark of curiosity. I asked him why he chose our company, given the many opportunities elsewhere. His response made me smile, satisfaction washing over me, because here talent and ethics matter more than connections. In that moment, I realized that this was the legacy we had built together. This was the culture Mr. Dawson had envisioned, and I'd work tirelessly to shape the true success of our company. Wasn't just in the groundbreaking projects we created, it was in the culture we had built, a culture that valued integrity above all else, a culture where honesty, hard work, and transparency were the true currencies of success. It was everything I had hoped for and more. And when I thought back to those early days, the moments of doubt and fear, I knew we had built something that would stand the test of time. Mr. Dawson had been right all along. It wasn't just about creating incredible technology, it was about creating a foundation that would allow others to succeed too. As I sat back and reflected on everything we'd accomplished, I couldn't help but feel proud of the path we had chosen, because at the end of the day, the true legacy we leave behind isn't just in the projects we complete, it's in the lives we touch, the culture we create, and the opportunities we give to others to build something great. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, like the video and subscribe to our channel. This is Revenge Scales, where justice always finds its way. See you next time.